I was a big fan of Justin Fields when I follow high school recruiting, and so I always thought it was strange that Georgia didn't start him. He went to Ohio State. I didn't get that at all. I think he's going to be a big star, former Buckeye with the Chicago Bears. I don't doubt it for a second. 6'3", 220. He says all the right things at the podium. Reminds me a little bit of Dak Prescott, where guys that struggle at the podium, I never forget watching Sean McVay at the podium for the first time, and I'm like, I don't know who that guy is, but that guy has his shit together. And so when I watch Justin at the podium, he just says all the right stuff. So you can tell he's a grown-up, and this is a hard job. Can you explain to me why it didn't work at Georgia? I don't get it.
I think you're looking at it through the lens of Fields is a better NFL prospect than Jake Fromm. I think what you have to do if you go back to look at that is Georgia played Alabama in the national championship with a freshman quarterback who early in the year, they were winning despite him. They were winning and he was just trying to manage the game, hand it off to Sonny Michel and Nick Chubb and just kind of get out of the way. Don't turn it over. We're going to win with our running game, occasionally hit a 3rd and 4 and we're good. And then they lost at Auburn late in the year, Jordan-Hare. And then they rematched with them in the SEC championship like a week later. And he started to make plays. He started to grow up and they started to win because of him. I called the Rose Bowl that same year where they ended up meeting up with Baker Mayfield and they were getting blown out. It was ugly. It was embarrassing. And if you watch that game and go back and really study it, Jake Fromm started to make some plays and they had to throw. And it was obvious passing situations. And so again, another game where they won because of him. And then they go and play Nick Saban in Alabama and they got the game in the bag. And then Tua becomes Tua right before our eyes on a national stage. And that was your quarterback that year. The next year, that quarterback became the leader of not the offense. He became the leader of the team. And he's an old soul kind of guy, Jake Fromm. And so you bring in this new prospect and Justin Fields, who could have gone to Penn State, could have gone anywhere. And I think it put Kirby Smart in a really tough spot to say, hey, I got this new 5-star recruit, but my God, the work we put in with Jake Fromm last year to go from where he was just kind of managing the game to winning because of him. We've had an entire offseason with him leading the drills. Guys are breaking down huddles with him in the huddle. And now I'm going to replace him with a potential quarterback who's got huge upside. I just don't think it's as easy as everyone makes it sound because there's more to it. It's like last year, Jack Cohn got replaced by Graham Mertz, who was 22 at 23 because he had a big game. But guess what? Internally, that team loved Jack Cohn. That team played for Jack Cohn. So sometimes it's not just about at that position, who's the best prospect or who has the most upside. Sometimes it's about who does the team believe in? Who's our leader? And Jake Fromm, that make no mistake, Jake Fromm was the leader after everything he had done the year before. So if we're going to do a talent competition, then Justin Fields is a freak of nature. There's no competition there. But if you're talking about playing football and executing and experience and knowledge and everything he had been through the previous year, to me, it's a no-brainer the other way. You got to play Jake Fromm. There's no way Kirby Smart could have sat Jake Fromm for a more talented, unproven rookie quarterback at that stage.
When you talked to Urban Meyer and Ryan Day about Justin Fields, what were the early conversations like the first time they got a look at him?
I talked really more with Ryan. It was more of big eyes. They just came off of Dwayne Haskins, who was a first rounder. And they were like, this guy's just different. And more importantly, he came into a situation where they needed a quarterback. They just lost a kid who probably should have stayed another year in college.
He should have, yeah.
Yeah, he needed another year. So they were in a jam. And what they loved was he'd never been to the North. He comes up in a very unfamiliar setting with a lot of tradition, has his hat in his hand, and is very gracious in how he won the team over. And immediately became obvious that he was the guy. And he's a hard worker. He's cerebral. putting the time away from the facility to pick up the offense. They were probably more impressed with willingness to work and his willingness to learn the system than they were, oh my God, look at that throw. Or, oh my God, look how physical and athletic this kid is. So
yeah, you know what? Kirk, that reminds me of when Russell Wilson went NC State to Wisconsin.
Yeah, very similar.
They named him captain.
Later, he was the unanimous captain in 2 months. It was that kind of thing, which goes back to what you said earlier. He gets in front of the podium. He knows how to handle himself. That's why leading into the draft, I was getting a little bit feisty, and I normally don't do that. It's not like an Ohio State thing. When people were critical of Dwayne Haskins, with all due respect to Dwayne, I wasn't like defending him. With Justin Fields, I was kind of getting frustrated because things that were being said about him weren't true. And you know how it is with the draft. There's always bogus information out there. But they were talking about last one there, first one to leave kind of stuff. And I was like, I've known this kid for 3 years. It's complete opposite. This kid is off the charts when it comes to intangibles. Kid's off the chart when it comes to commitment. And I don't know where people are getting this, but it wasn't fair and it wasn't right. And I think he slid a little bit because of some of that noise. And the Bears were lucky enough to pick him up later than I thought he would have gone. I don't know how 6'3", 225 can run, played in huge games. And they were nitpicking, like, did you see him in the second half against Indiana? Did you see him in that Big Ten championship against Northwestern? It's like, yeah. Did you see him in the Clemson game? How do you want to break it down? The kid has more good than bad. So we'll see. But I'll be shocked if – I love that Andy Dalton, they announced he's going to be the starter. That's fine. But eventually this kid is a can't-miss prospect in my mind.
Yeah, I made one call on Justin Fields when I heard the work ethic things. I went on the air that day and I said, well, I made one call to somebody inside Ohio State who I trust for years, and I'm like, no, his work ethic's fine.
Yeah.
And by the way, there have been quarterbacks. I was very critical of Baker Mayfield and Jameis Winston's judgment in college. Yeah. Johnny Manziel, I said was a non-draftable player. I heard nothing but good stuff with Justin Fields.